Hello, I'm here with Juan Hernández, who's from Mexico, and he has extensive experience working in the Mexican government at the federal and state level. So he's going to talk about federalism and what it looks like in Mexico and the benefits and the drawbacks of that system for Mexican politics and Mexican society.
Well, what an honor, Dr. Pedreira, and greetings to all the students of Latin American politics. I'm so glad that you are studying both Latin America and studying political science. A professor of mine of theology many years ago said there are really only two great professions, he said. The serving God, being a priest or being a pastor, and serving people, being a politician. And I tend to agree. Public service, political service is an honorable life, and don't let those who are crooked ruin your vision of serving people. In Mexico, on the one hand, it's a similar system to one in the United States, in the sense that we have the three powers. We have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Mexico is divided into 32 states, not 50 as in the United States. And each one of those states has its own constitution and has a variety of sometimes laws that could be different from one state to the other, including electoral laws, etc. Mexico, and I'll just go back a little bit, but for 71 years, Mexico had one ruling party, the PRI, el PRI, Partido de la Revolución Independiente, institucional. The word institucional is important, even though it was a party that many would say, well, that's not democracy, having the same party for 71 years. And in many respects, they're correct. But that word, Partido de la Revolución institucional is so important because it is true that during this period, great institutions were created. After revolutions, a lot of problems in Mexico, this party gave a direction to the nation. Now, in the year 2000, I had the great honor to work with Vicente Fox, who ran for president and was able to beat the party that had been in power for 71 years, which was incredible, miraculous that would happen. In Mexico, it's a 6-year term and no re-election. And Vicente Fox won, was president for 6 years. I will say that many of the dreams of the new party, of the new movement, as it was called, were not realized, and for maybe many reasons, but I would say the main one was September 11th. If you remember, the President of the United States, George W. Bush, and Vicente Fox won the same year of 2000, and I had the great honor, matter of fact, introducing them as they were both governors. Vicente Fox, governor of the state of Guanajuato, George W. Bush, governor of Texas, and they became very close and had many, many dreams for what was called the North American dream. I hope you've heard of Robert Pastor, Dr. Pastor. He was a professor at American University, I believe, Washington, has now passed, but has written many books about how Canada, United States, and Mexico should be a bloc, similar to Europe, but maybe not as strict, 3 independent nations, but working much closer together than we work today. And so both, all three, Chrétien, who was the prime minister in the year 2000-2001, Vicente Fox became president of Mexico, and George W. Bush became president of the United States. The three of them were already working on all kinds of ways for immigration reform, for a NAFTA plus, etc. As a matter of fact, we had been in D.C. the week before September 11th when that terrible tragedy occurred. And so the next week, everything was halted. And in the coming months, years, the United States was very insistent on going to war, as you remember, to Iraq. Both Canada and Mexico never saw those weapons of mass destruction that supposedly were there. So even though they were very close to George W. Bush, were not willing to go to that war. Many of those dreams were never realized. And so, with regard to federalism, as you mentioned at the beginning, it is true that many of the states under President Vicente Fox were empowered much more than had been for the 71 years with the PRI. And much more the budget was given to the states, etc. Felipe Calderón wins as president of the same party as Vicente Fox, the PAN, sort of a center-right party. Then the PRI wins again after 12 years of not being in power. And then a new party is created by López Obrador, who ran, some would say, all his life for president and had been in different parties, the P and the Ph.D. And he created his own party called Morena and won by huge numbers. And then the second one in Morena, of course, is Claudia Sheinbaum, who's the president now. I spoke about the institutions at the beginning, and now I must tell you that just please go into Google, read what has happened in the last weeks and months. But even in the last week, the institutions have been greatly weakened in Mexico. The Electoral Institute is now down to just a minimum without being able to really make sure and audit elections in Mexico under the federal Morena executive. Both the lower house and the Senate are of Morena, and now the judicial system has been changed. In many areas, the Constitution of Mexico has been changed. So now judges in Mexico, it's the only place in the world except some Cuba, Venezuela, judges now are elected. Some people say, well, but the United States are elected. No, that's not true. There are a few instances, some places throughout the United States where the judges are elected, but now Mexico has elections for the judges, and just to show what we're living is that the most important thing that the Supreme Court has passed is that they no longer wear the cloaks, as if that were a huge difference. Very difficult times in Mexico. We won't, unless you want me to, but we don't need to get into narco trafficking, etc. But these are days of the institutions losing their power and democracy being weakened in the nation of Mexico.
And if you want to go into the narco trafficking, it is a very relevant issue, not only for Mexico, but for the region itself.
Yes. People think that this is exaggerated, but I think it's okay that we say we're at a Congress here where several have asked me, what's happening in Mexico with regard to the debilitating of the institutions, but also with regard to the strength of the narco traffickers. Maybe we'd say little by little, but it took years for the capos, for these individuals who traffic drugs, mostly to the United States, but to other parts of the world, coming mostly from other countries, but now situated very heavily in Mexico, getting some of their chemicals from China and other places, but producing now drugs in Mexico and mostly selling them to the United States. the controversy has always been, well, it's the United States' fault because they're the consumers of the drugs, so Mexico is only selling them what they already want. And the United States, no, it's their fault because they're creating those drugs and they're, killing our young people, et cetera, with the drugs. Well, I think there's a lot of fault on both sides, and we need to work together to somehow stop the trafficking. But now, not only the trafficking, the power that the narco traffickers have in Mexico. It's hard for me to be judge of how many of the politicians, of governors, of mayors, of senators, of congressmen have received funding from these groups, but most world organizations believe that Mexico is, if not totally ruled by the narco traffickers, definitely has an incredible power over every governing body in the nation. Whether that's totally true or not, I can't be sure, but I will tell you that I've grown up both in the United States and Mexico, mostly in Mexico, and in many places, not most, but in many places now we cannot let our children go to school on their own, walking the streets. Once it gets dark, maybe we'll go out to dinner somewhere close by, but it is a very, very sad and very, very dangerous place in general.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, LaFleur.
Thank you.